All right. It is 8:55 on Sunday morning. I slept like dog crap. I had 20 minutes. I want to do this. Then I want to go crawl in a hole. And we'll wait till Monday to get into everything else. But I felt like I need, some of y'all may need just a second to kind of digest exactly what we saw happen on the football field last night. And some people cope in different ways. I cope by talking, trying to rationalize what happened, figure out how we went so wrong predicting and previewing and analyzing this game in the lead up. We all five of us on the show, and all seven, if you include Earl and Anthony, picked the Browns to beat the Texans. I saw, frankly, no way Houston was going to beat the Browns based on the matchups, based on each team's strengths and weaknesses. And at the end of the day, we were flat out wrong. And I just want to say, before we get into what I think was the biggest miss on our end, shout out to the Texans. They beat the crap out of the Browns yesterday. There's no ifs, ands, buts. There's no other way to put it. They outplayed Cleveland on offense. They outplayed Cleveland on defense. They outplayed Cleveland on special teams. They outcoached the Browns. They outschemed the Browns. They outprepared for the Browns. They were the better football team yesterday, and there's no other way to put it. So I'm going to complain and gripe about some of the things we saw yesterday from the Browns, but take nothing away from the Texans. They deserve to win that football game. That's a promising franchise in the AFC South, and they're going to be a problem moving forward. So give the Texans credit. They beat the Browns yesterday, but I can't get over how that game unfolded. Like in my wildest dreams, yeah, I could have seen the Texans winning, I guess. Like I didn't think so, but I couldn't have seen it unfolding like it did. And I think what's most frustrating to me, and I'm texting Miss Nuggets right now, and she asked how I slept. Slept like crap. I slept like dog crap last night, man. This game was replaying in my head time after time after time after time. And I think the most frustrating part to me, like the single most frustrating part about what happened yesterday, is we talked all week. And if I can find these stats, I know the Browns know this. Like if I can find this, and if ESPN's putting it out there, if it's on like the Browns know this. CJ Stroud was great against zone coverage and bad against man coverage. And all his numbers across the board dropped significantly. Not to like terrible ranks, but he was much better in a clean pocket when he wasn't pressured than he was when pressured. That's not groundbreaking. That's most quarterbacks. But his drop off from clean pocket to pressured pocket numbers were pretty significant. And when you look at how the Browns defensively tried to attack the Texans, I feel like they didn't attack. Like they played a passive game, and Myles Garrett after the game, and let me read the quote because I don't want to get this one wrong. I'll read this quote exactly word for word as he said it. But Myles Garrett said post-game when asked, quote, "We did not go back to what we needed to quickly enough. We should have adjusted and got right from an individual level, being on the same page communication-wise." End quote from Myles Garrett after the game. I feel like the Browns went into this game, especially I'll talk offense in a sec. Let me start with the defense first, though. They went into this game expecting what they had done all season to work again against Houston. And it didn't seem like they made any adjustments whatsoever from week 16 when they played Houston with Case Keenum to the first round of the playoffs with CJ Stroud. I told y'all the number on Friday. The Houston Texans averaged 5.6 yards per play this season with CJ Stroud. They averaged 3.9 plays in 155 plays without CJ Stroud, which was the lowest mark in the league for any team. What we saw from Case Keenum in week 16 shouldn't have been any type of indication of what we were going to see yesterday with CJ Stroud at quarterback. And the fact that the Browns just seem so passive and seem so hesitant to send pressure, and I'll get to why they may have been hesitant in a sec, but the fact that they were just complacent, letting CJ Stroud essentially set his feet and fire darts across the field was mind-boggling to me. And maybe you can say, yeah, well, we thought Myles Garrett would be able to get pressure one-on-one against Laramie Tunsil or whoever he was matched up against. Maybe we thought Zadarius Smith could replicate his best game of the season, which was against the Houston Texans and Case Keenum, which he didn't. Maybe we thought Dalvin Tomlinson and Jordan Elliott and Shelby Harris and the guys who had been consistent in the middle all season long could have generated pressure by themselves, but it wasn't working at first. So you got to adjust, Jim. One thing Jim Schwartz had done great all season, the Browns' first quarter total points allowed was near the bottom of the league. And the second and third, the Browns didn't make an adjustment yet. It felt like the Browns didn't make an adjustment going back from that Week 16 matchup. And I'm telling you guys, and I tried to ask this question this week, and I guess maybe it didn't go over. Maybe I was more concerned than them, but I took nothing from Week 16 in preparation for yesterday because the Texans didn't have their two best defensive pass rushers and their quarterback. It's a different team. So I don't get it. I don't get it. Now, I think in the I'm going to go big picture here to go macro, so stay with me. The Browns had the number one defense in football this season. They had the number one ranked pass defense. They allowed the fewest passing yards of any team in the NFL over the last 20 years. The numbers they put up, statistically speaking, in terms of pass defense and limiting opposing quarterbacks, was historically good. My question, and I think this is a valid question to ask now, and I don't know the answer yet. I'm just simply asking the question. Was the Browns' pass defense really that good this season? Or were those numbers inflated by having great schedule luck? You played Clayton Tune. You played Kenny Pickett twice. Every time you played a good quarterback, they were unhealthy, didn't have receivers, whatever. The only two legitimate good quarterbacks the Browns' defense who were healthy at the time of the game shut down was Brock Purdy and Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson put up 31 points in that loss because Deshaun Watson was so fantastic in the second half. Outside of Brock Purdy, this Browns defense didn't really shut down a top-tier quarterback who was healthy at the time of the game. Matt Stafford carved him up. And you saw what Bobby Slovic and the Texans offense did yesterday. That was a copy and paste offensive game plan from the LA Rams game, and the Rams carved up this Browns defense. So I think it's a fair question to ask. Was this defense as good as we thought they were? Or was it inflated by playing some really bad quarterbacks throughout the season, which, I can't blame the Browns. They play who's on their schedule. It's not the Browns' fault that Clayton Tune was the quarterback and not Kyler Murray, or that Trevor Lawrence had just sprained his ankle the game before, or that Joe Burrow in week 1 was coming off a calf sprain or whatever. Like, you can't blame that on the Browns. They played the quarterbacks they were going against, but I don't know. Like, was this defense as good as we thought? I think it's a fair question to ask. Now, yesterday, we talked about not yesterday, but leading to this game. Nico Collins was a stud. Texans were without Tank Dell, got hurt on the very first drive of the game. And we know Robert Woods because he's been in the NFL for what was like Xavier Hutchinson, John Mechie, two guys who are untested in the NFL. We're making big plays all over the field. And we asked the question on the show, Browns secondary, Texans receivers, who do you give the edge to? We all said the Browns secondary. Look at the numbers. Number one ranked pass defense. Denzel Ward's a Pro Bowler. Martin Emerson, we made the case, was he snubbed from the Pro Bowl? Could he have been an all-pro guy? Greg Newsome, one of the best slot cornerbacks in football. And they all got worked yesterday. They got beat like a drum. Guys, the Texans put up 45 points. I know 2 of them were defensive touchdowns, but CJ Stroud overthrew Nico Collins on what could have been his easiest touchdown pass of the game. Dalton Schultz dropped a pass on the first drive that would have been a 25-yard gain that could have gave the Texans another touchdown early on. It was incredible to me. Incredible how either they just got out, they just weren't ready. Like, this may not make any, like, I'm kind of lost for words still, guys. And I apologize if I'm kind of mumbling here and falling over my word. I don't even know how to put into context how disappointed I was in the performance of the secondary. They didn't tackle. They were letting guys run wide open. And yeah, Nico Collins is a stud. Nico Collins is an absolute freaking stud. And we all said he's not on the same level as Amari Cooper, despite having better numbers this year. And I still think that he's not on the same level as Amari Cooper, but he's in that same category. He's right in that conversation. If you're picking receivers next year, Nico Collins is probably going to be a pick before Amari Cooper. And that's not even a knock on Cooper. That's a testament to how good Nico Collins had been. And Nico worked everybody. They picked on Greg Newsome yesterday, man. I felt bad for Greg by the end of the game. And Tyvis told us, and he wasn't on the show this week, but Tyvis told us in a group text, in the playoffs, opposing offenses find the weakness and they attack the weak link. Bobby Slovic and the Houston Texans offense yesterday picked out and isolated Greg Newsome and Ronnie Hickman. And Hickman, who had been one of the highest rated safeties according to PFF throughout the entire second half of the season when he was the starter with Grant Delpit out. And on that Dalton Schultz touchdown, guys, they put him in a blender. In an absolute freaking blend. Like, it was one of the things you draw up in Madden or in the playground and like, oh yeah, this is gonna work, but it doesn't really work in real football. But they rolled CJ Stroud out to the right. He had time to plant his feet, survey the field, make a cup of coffee, call his grandma. Like, and he hit Dalton Schultz on a perfect. They put him in a freaking blender, man. They put him in a blender, and it just was disappointing. They ended up playing more zone coverage than man coverage because their cornerbacks couldn't hang with the Texans receivers man to man. But what did we talk about all week? CJ Stroud had the highest QBR against zone coverage in football, the 27th highest QBR against man coverage. That's great in theory if your man guys can cover the Texans receivers. And yesterday, the Texans receivers completely outworked the Browns defensive backs. We showed you the numbers on Friday with Denzel Ward in and out of the lineup. With Denzel Ward in, they'd only allowed, I think, 4 passes. Let me pull up the numbers right here. I'll give you the exact number in a sec. But with Denzel Ward in, they had only allowed, in total this season, in 13 games, 13 pass touchdowns. In total, 13 games, 13 pass touchdowns with Denzel Ward. 4 games without Denzel Ward, they allowed 10 passing touchdowns. It didn't even make a difference that Denzel was on the field. And I thought of all the DBs, he played the best. He played the best. It was a giant nothing burger from the defense. The defensive line, which, I'll take the L. I touted them as one of the best defensive line. I thought they could have put up even more sacks. I thought their pressure rates were tremendous. We saw towards the end of the season, the teams that they played against, mainly Denver, Jacksonville, the Rams, and Houston in this matchup, they decided the best way to attack this Browns defense was to get the ball out quickly. They did. It negated the pressures. And Myles Garrett, guys, I mean, Earl said it best yesterday. He just didn't show up in the biggest game. Like, he was there, but I can't think of really one impact play he made, and that's just disappointing. It's not all Myles' fault. They were double teaming him. I get that, but you need your best players to step up and play biggest when the lights are the brightest. And Myles Garrett yesterday did not play his best game, and that's disappointing. And JOK played his freaking ass off. JOK was unbelievable yesterday. And no one else on defense stepped up from a schematic standpoint, and that includes Jim Schwartz, to an execution standpoint, and that includes the other 10 guys on the field, and Myles Garrett's not exempt from that. It's okay to say he didn't play his best game yesterday. It's just a fact. He was a non-factor. He got outplayed by Will Anderson, the rookie from Houston, who had a dominant game, and we'll talk about him in a sec. But it just was disappointing to go into this game thinking the Browns and what they've done all season over a 17-game sample was the perfect kryptonite to what the Houston Texans like to do offensively. How do you beat Houston? At least on paper, this is what the numbers told you going into this game. Get pressure, man coverage. What are the best parts of the Browns' defense? Their defensive line with Myles Garrett and their secondary with Denzel Ward. And it just didn't turn out that way. And it crushes me inside that this was an opportunity. I just couldn't see the Browns lose. I didn't know how the Browns were going to lose this game. I couldn't see a way how the Browns were going to lose this game, and they got freaking boat race, man. They got dog walk. It sucked. That game wasn't fun. It was, and I'll read some comments in a sec. I'll talk offense in a sec, and then I'll do some comments and we'll wrap up. I just need to get on here and talk, but it kills me, man. It really does kill me. I feel like a kick in the nuts that we were all so wrong and so blindsided. And it's one thing to lose a football game. It's another thing to get absolutely just embarrassed on national TV in a game that you were so excited for, in a game that had this much anticipation and this much hype and this much hope, and to see the city completely bought in the way it did, and the excitement for this game and the excitement for a potential Super Bowl run. And we're talking about Joe Flacco versus Lamar Jackson next week. And we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers and Defensive Player of the Years and Coach of the Years. And Earl, yeah, he said it best, man. I didn't sleep last night. I kept waking up. I just kept thinking, how are we so freaking wrong? Okay, I'll get to offense in a sec. I told this to Earl right after we hopped off the stream yesterday. This is the worst part about how the Browns lost yesterday. The Cavs, when they got eliminated by the Knicks in the playoffs, we went into the entire offseason and the entire regular season saying, none of it matters. You got to prove it in the playoffs. None of this matters. You got to prove it in the playoffs. The Cavs could go 60-22, And until they won a playoff series, wouldn't have mattered. Wouldn't have made a damn difference. It's like, what? You got to prove it in the playoffs. The fact that the Browns lost the game to the Texans yesterday in the fashion they did is going to give people credence all of next season, no matter what no matter what Andrew Berry does, no matter what Stefanski does, no matter what players come in, no matter what draft picks, no matter who they sign, who they trade, whatever they do in the regular season, there's going to be people out there who are going to be like, don't care. I need to see improvement in the playoffs before I'll buy in. And they're going to have a point, and I'm not going to be able to argue with them. And maybe they're right. That's the worst part, is that now, because of the way they lost, because of the smoke and mirror show that maybe we got fugazied by for 17 weeks, there is credences now for those people who don't want to believe and don't want to buy in to be like, none of it matters till the playoffs. And we see it's hard to get there. It's unpredictable. The NFL is completely up and down week to week, and it makes no freaking sense. And if you try to bet on it, it's just a losing proposition. Like, none of it makes sense. But the fact that now I have to listen for the next 9-10 months, for a year essentially, of people being like, yeah, well, if they don't do it in the playoffs, it doesn't matter. Like, that sucks, because it does matter. And it should be fun. And the process should be fun. And now it's such a result-oriented situation you're in that it sucks. It sucks. I don't want to curse. It's too early to curse, but it sucks, man. It really does. So the defense was an abomination yesterday. And once again, kudos to the Texans. They took it to the Browns in every conceivable way you could imagine. They outcoached them, outplayed them, out-hustled, out-toughed. At the end, that last Devin Singletary touchdown, the Browns defense had completely given up. So it sucks. Or I'll let you hop in 1 sec to join this therapy session. I got to say one thing on offense, and then I'll let you hop in. I only got another 10 minutes, so we'll make this quick. I want to read some comments too. But offensively, hindsight's 2020. Who knows what would have happened if the Browns had played their starters in Week 18? None of us know. All I do know is I watched the two teams play yesterday. One team looked crisp and sharp. One team looked a little out of sync. One team played in Week 18 with their starters to get ready for a playoff situation. The other one didn't. Would that have made a difference? I don't know the answer. All I know is whatever the Browns did, it didn't work. And Joe Flacco came back to reality. The offensive line couldn't block. Offensively, the Browns were looking for other players to stop. They stopped Amari Cooper, so other players had to step up, and I thought David Bell did. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough. And the big dagger, and what just kills me even more, was that second pick six, which is what broke the camel's back, essentially. It was 3rd and 1, and the Browns tried to run the ball with Kareem Hunt, who Kareem Hunt had been awesome this season. 11 touchdowns off the couch. It was his performance this season was admirable on every level. I was wrong when I said I thought he was washed. He couldn't bring anything. He clearly did. He had more than 3 tires. Jason was wrong. I was wrong. Like, Kareem Hunt played his ass off this year. But they ran the ball on 3rd and 1, and Will Anderson gets the TFL to set up that 4th and 2. On the 4th and 2, there's pressure. Flacco throws the pick six to Christian Harris. Game over. Christian Harris was a draft pick that the Texans made with a pick that they got from Cleveland in the Deshaun Watson trade. Will Anderson was a pick the Texans made using a draft pick. Now, they had to trade up, so it wasn't the exact pick, but it was a pick they used from the Deshaun Watson trade. And the two players defensively who made a game-saving and game-changing play were a direct result of the Deshaun Watson trade. And it just felt like an extra turn of the dagger, Earl. You know what I'm saying? Like, the game was over. It sucked. It was already over. But the fact that those two players of everybody were the ones who just really just broke the camel's back, man. Did you sleep last night?
No, man. Honestly, man, I'm not. I'm trying to nurse myself back. I went to bed a little tingly here, but I seen you on, so I jumped on. I didn't sleep last night. I was frustrated. You know what I'm saying? Still a little depressed, little pissed off still, but everything you just said, I was feeling the same way. When I seen Christian Woods kind of get that interception and take it in, I was like, damn, that's a Deshaun Watson pick. Or just knowing, like, you know, like Will Anderson Jr., like you said, that pick was traded up to get to where they at. We talked about before, I think Tank Dell is another pick that was, you know, drafted with one of the Browns picks. There's always a possibility that you're going to lose to your opponent in the playoffs. But I just think the circumstances and the particular reasons, you know, surrounding the Deshaun Watson trade, going to Houston after you just whooped their ass, and going back there. You know, got Deshaun on the sidelines now. Like we all internally kind of off the record talked about the last team that the Browns can lose to in the playoffs was the Houston Texans because the storylines was going to be mass, right? There was going to be so many different things that you can tie to, and joke is on us right now, and we got to sit up here and we got to take it. Somebody was just in my comments and they was right. We walked around cocky, kind of looking past our opponent, talking about Baltimore, trying to figure out, how this thing can play out to where the Browns can get a home playoff game. And we kind of totally overlooked the Houston Texans. I ain't going to say totally overlooked, but we were so confident that the Browns was going to handle their business that we kind of just chalked this one up as a dub. And we went out there and we got our ass handed to us. And it's a humbling experience, man. It's back to the drawing board. Got to figure some things out. But like, what you said yesterday, what you said this morning, I definitely feel like that now because that's the same energy I have for the Cavs. No matter what the Browns do next year, right? It can be a special season and everything can go right. But in the back of my mind somewhere, I'm going to be thinking, okay, it really don't matter. Let me see what you do once you get to the playoffs. Because now the stakes is raised a little bit higher now, right? And we can't sit here and focus on pretty numbers or, they set this record during the season or they did this during the season. No, like all that's cool and all, but you got to be playing your best football towards the end of the season. And we were. And I felt like we halted our own momentum. You know what I mean? Like, and I had a couple hours of sleep on it. I really feel like we halted our own momentum. I understand why we did so, but just because I understand it, it doesn't make it okay, right? It doesn't make me less frustrated. Joe Flacco kind of like caught fire, and knowing that he's a 39-year-old quarterback who hadn't had this type of success since 2019, like I wish we just kind of like would have just rolled away with it, right? But instead, we operated in our fears. We were so worried about him getting hurt based on everything that we've been through this year, and we halted our own momentum. And we didn't play that great in that closeout game, and we all kind of chalked it up too. Well, it's the end of the season. It didn't matter. We kind of felt like this team had checked out, and it seemed like, man, after the Jets game, they never checked back in. Yeah, like they just never checked back in.
And I said this to start. I'll say it again, man. The Texans beat the crap out of the Browns in every facet. They deserved to win yesterday. If those two teams played coming into yesterday the same way they played, there's no way the Browns end up winning that game. The Texans win that 100 out of 100 times with how well they were prepared and how poorly the Browns executed. So kudos to the Texans. They deserved it. Take nothing away from them. But it just – I feel bad, Earl, because I just feel like we spent a whole week leading up to this game, and we were wrong about every single thing we thought.
Every single thing.
And not just me, and not you, but Bull and Jay and G and Jason and Tyvis and everyone associated with UCSS. We were wrong on literally every single thing we predicted and thought was going to happen and thought could play out about this game.
Yeah.
In a million years, I didn't see this game playing out how it did. And we were wrong for 2 hours on Monday and 2 hours on Tuesday and 2 hours Wednesday, 2 hours Thursday, and 2 hours on Friday. And then an hour yesterday morning with our 2 preview shows. So that's 11 hours of content. That was 11 hours of us being dead ass wrong on every single thing we talked about. And if there's one thing I'm taking away from yesterday, Earl, moving forward, I think playoff experience is overrated. I think Leroy said it best. In the lead up, it makes a difference. But once the game starts, it's football again. And every single one of us picked Joe Flacco over CJ Stroud for this game. Who would you want? We want Joe Flacco. We were wrong. And it was just one of the 75,000 things we were wrong about this week. And I just feel disappointed that we misled people who listen to us. And I hope, it's not just us. There was a lot of people who were wrong this week. I'm just speaking about us in totality. I just think playoff experience is overrated. And maybe I'll change my mind again next year, but no one on the Texans has a plethora of experience. Between Joe Flacco and Juan Thornhill, I think that's more experience than the entire Texans team had as a unit, including their coaching staff. And it did not make a damn difference in the slightest. It looked like one team had experience, and that looked like the Texans, and it looked like the Browns were playing in their first meaningful football game in 50 years. They came out, the lights were too bright, to steal a quote from Jared Allen. And it just, I'm still in shock. It's been almost 20 hours, and I just can't believe this is how it ended up. I don't know. Maybe playoff experience is overrated. I'm like
No,
lost
no,
for words, man. It
it's funny
sucks.
that you say that, right? Because I've been thinking about this, trying to figure out a way to articulate it, but it's me and you chopping it up. It's the UCSS fans. I ain't got to get all cute with it. I do think it's overrated, right? Because at the end of the day, we heard Cecil say it. I think the week that you was gone. Ballers ball, football players, they show up
Yeah.
and they play football. And Flacco got the playoff experience. A couple of our core players has been to the playoffs once in 2020. A lot of people are not going to give Kevin Stefanski the credit for the 2020 win. He wasn't on the sidelines, especially after how everything else looked. But then I started thinking about the Houston Texans, right? And I think we played down the experience that CJ Stroud had playing in big moments at Ohio State because it was college, right?
Yeah.
We tried to dummy that down, that it wasn't the same as the NFL, but he went to Ohio State University. This dude has seen big game after big game. But Mike, the one person that, man, DeMeco Ryans, man, like as a player, I'm trying to go back and think, did he ever play in a playoff game with the Houston Texans? I know he's been on the
Yeah.
sideline with
I'll
the
look it up.
49ers as a
He
coach.
had to have. Let
But
me
it's
look it up,
like,
but I'm 90% sure.
yeah, why you doing that? Like, I keep thinking about, like, okay, this is a dude that's a former player, right? And there is nothing like
3 games.
3 playoff games, right? So we could talk about him not having experience as a coach, but this is a man that was in between he was on the gridiron, right? During playoff games, and he understood what it took to execute and to operate. And if I'm a Houston Texans player, man, if I got a head coach that was a damn good football player itself, that got some playoff experience both as a coach and as a player, man, anything he say, I'm open ears, right? And so, like, in a sense, he got more playoff experience than Kevin Stefanski do. Technically, in a sense, and from two different aspects of it. And that's why I'm starting to fall in love. And I know we're getting a little bit off track, but like Antonio Pierce with the Raiders, you seen what he did there. Gerard Mayo has an opportunity now to take over the New England Patriots, right? You got DeMeco Ryans here. And it's kind of funny that all 3 of these dudes play linebacker and had like extreme success at their position, right? And so it's like, when you got a coach like that and you a young team, man, like, you believe like nobody else believe, right? Because status quo is experience always matters. And then I started using, like, me and you for examples. Like, we're young, we're up and coming in this game, man. We working our asses off to get to where we want to be. And yet we don't let the lack of experience compared to Bull or Jay Crawford stop us from getting on here and doing our thing and showing out when we get our opportunities to show out too. So subconsciously, why should I think it's any different in any other aspect of life? Like, you said it, I'm gonna say it too. I can't speak for everybody else, man. I dropped the ball. I dropped the ball for 6 or 7 days. A bad job out of y'all for not calling me on that, man.
Listen, like, part of the reason I'm in such disbelief this morning is I still can't believe the game ended up how it is. And football is completely unpredictable. And that's the beauty of the sport. But just the way it unfolded, Bobby Slovic, the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, should use yesterday's game plan as a resume for a head coaching position. He's one of the guys
that's
who
real.
a ton. He was unbelievable yesterday. Unfreaking believable yesterday, the way they got guys open. I also noticed something, Earl, and it'll be real quick because I want to come back to something. The Browns defense looked slow yesterday, and I'm not sure if I had noticed it in other games where they had looked so much slower than the opposition. But when you have Brevin Jordan, their backup tight end, running away from DBs and linebackers, and then you have Dalton Schultz getting, 17 yards of separation on Ronnie Hickman. And real quick, I want to get something else, but do you remember the Browns defense being that slow this season, or the Texans that fast?
I don't remember the Browns defense being that slow. The Texans have been this fast. I done seen a couple. I watch a lot of Red Zone. I do a lot of gambling. We all play fantasy football. So, like, you watch.
You had Brevin Jordan scored a touchdown when we played. So that's honestly the only reason I know who he was because he was in your lineup when you played me this year.
Yeah. So like these dudes, I mean, and what's crazy is that was their longest player of the year.
Yeah.
That was their longest player of the year. But I would lean on the fact that, man, the Browns did not look that slow at any point this season, man. And like that particular play, because like Brevin Jordan's not even that fast, bro. Like, he's not even that fast. Like, you could just tell.
He's
like,
fast, but he's not a burner. He's not
man,
Tank
I
Dell.
went back. I watched that. So they had that game on Couldn't Sleep last night. and they had that game on replay last night. And I went back and watched it, probably like rewind that play like once or twice. Like I'm not maybe this is something for Tyvus to break down, but it just seemed like, man, they caught us slipping in a wrong defensive package. Because when he got past that first line of defense, there was nobody that was going had an opportunity to catch him. Once MJ whipped on that tackle, it was a wrap. He was going to score. So
I see someone in the chat says Jordan used to be a running back. Okay, maybe he's faster than I think, but still, he's not Tank Dell. He's not Nico Collins. He's not one of the guys I would expect to outrun a Brown secondary that, at least on paper, has three guys that run sub 4.3 or sub 4.4s, 4.4s and under. Denzel Ward, Newsome, and Thornhill. So it just whether or not he's as fast as we thought. Yeah, he should be running away from players.
You talk about the OC and how he perfectly schemed that open, man. Brevin Jordan sold that. He sold that as a block, and then he come off of that tight end screen like Jock looked confused, and Jock, I felt like that was on Jock. You can't have Ogbo trying to catch run that dude down. So, it was just they did a great job, bro. I mean, they went back and they watched the film from like the game that they played against us, and they came back and they made some adjustments. And then I think that they were confident because they didn't have some of their stars on defense, and they didn't have CJ Stroud, and so they felt like whatever they put on tape in that particular game, that it was a figment of what their offense really looks like, right? It was a figment of how they go about things.
I'm glad you brought that up, bro. So, I lived in Texas before I moved up here. I worked in Texas, and I got a couple friends who are big Texans fans. And the first thing they texted me after the game yesterday was, getting our ass kicked in week 16 was the best thing that ever happened for the rematch. I'm like, why do you say that? And I kind of mentioned it on the post-game show yesterday, and they confirmed it. He goes, well, you guys showed us your game plan of how you thought the Texans could be attacked offensively and what you would do defensively against them the first time. And you had your starters. We didn't. Obviously, they had some of them, but CJ Stroud, Grenard, Anderson out, some of our key guys. In the rematch, we already knew what your number one option to beat us, what you wanted to do at least to go first, was to go through Amari Cooper. You had no idea what we wanted to do to attack your defense with CJ Stroud. That's true. We had a whole 60 minutes of game tape to learn your tendencies, your formation packages against how you want to attack our specific unit, our coaches, and you had nothing on us. And not a whole lot has changed on the Browns side from week 16 to the wild card round. And the team that we saw in week 16 in a Houston Texans uniform was not anything like the team we saw yesterday at NRG Stadium. And I'm not a coach. I'm not a football expert. Like, I just tell you what I see and I talk to smart people. It feels like they had the upper hand in the rematch, knowing how the Browns wanted to attack them. And the Browns were completely in the dark of how a CJ Stroud-led offense was going to attack this Browns secondary.
Yeah, I mean, I see that to be accurate, right? Like, you can look back at it now. The Browns was in a situation when we went into that Houston Texas game to where we needed to win, right? We needed to do what we had to do to lock up our playoff spot. What I really believe is they went out there, they showed their whole hand with the expectation of we don't have to see Houston again. I think a lot of people felt like we was finna go to Jacksonville no matter what. Nobody was banking on.
I'll call timeout real quick. I was thinking about this last night. Mike Vrabel screwed up everything. Like, if you want to be mad at any individual person, if you're a Browns fan, you want to be mad at anyone in particular, blame Mike Vrabel. The Titans were supposed to lay down in week 18, let Jacksonville win. The Browns go to Jacksonville to take on an injured Trevor Lawrence. There'd be no home field advantage in Jacksonville. Yeah. Instead, Mike Vrabel rallies the troops in a way that only Mike Vrabel can do. You got backup running backs, third-string quarterbacks. They go and beat Jacksonville. That sets up Texans to win the division. The Browns have to go to Houston instead. If you're mad at anybody, and Earl, I'm glad I forgot to say that earlier, blame Mike Vrabel. I can't believe we talk about Ohio State Vrabel, that he's the one that really screwed the Browns over.
But you know what, though? Mike Vrabel is Northeast Ohio, Cleveland strong, right? Like, that's that Northeast Ohio in him. Like, yeah, we out of it. Yeah, we eliminated. But if I ain't going nowhere, you ain't going nowhere either, right? So he kind of like had his dudes ready to play on some big dog status, and they went out there and they whooped Jacksonville's ass. And it's funny because I think a day or two before that game, man, if you remember my tweet, I said, look, I feel like the Texans is going to beat the Colts, and I feel like the Titans is going to beat the Jaguars.
You said it exactly.
Like, and it just felt that type of way. You know, like Mike Vrabel was a name that I left out. Another former linebacker turned coach. Like at this point, man, go give me a former linebacker, man. Put him on the sidelines.
Hey, we got DQ in the staff. We just got to get DQ elevated to DC.
So like it's just one of those things, man, to where like I think that, you know, Kevin Stefanski and his staff, they went into that week versus the Texans doing everything they could to get that victory despite who was out there for the Houston Texans. And I don't think that they felt like that they would see them dudes again. I just don't believe that. And I might like I'm not gonna turn coat now, but I did have this small weary feeling yesterday of, man, like this is the second time we play in this game within 3 weeks, and Shorts ain't got a clue what to do with CJ Stroud because you don't have that experience, man. And it's just like, you know, it's one of those things. I'm not gonna sit up here. I'm not gonna make excuses. They came out here with a great game plan, ready to play. We didn't. And you know, to me, like I might sound like I'm talking out of both ends of my mouth, but when a team is not ready to play, that falls on the head coach. But that don't mean I want to let go of my head coach. And there are people that are so serious this morning that they feel like Kevin Stefanski needs to be fired. And I will argue this. There are so many different components that goes into being a great head coach or a good head coach. X's and O's, situational play calling is just one or two of them. But you being a leader of men, you know, your team respecting you, your team like being willing to play for you, those are all factors. And like, I really wish I knew the mindset, the tone, or the temperature of some of these players after the game yesterday and today. I think Kevin Stefanski is a good head coach. I just think that we went out there and we got our ass whooped, man.
Yeah. I want to say one thing on Joe Flacco, then I'll try to read a couple comments. Ant's not here, so I haven't even looked at the chat, so I apologize for more than a second.
I just impromptu jumped on, so we can do this real quick.
I'll try to read a couple, but I apologize if I missed anything ahead of time. We had talked since the day they signed Joe Flacco, Earl, and I was probably the most stringent of anybody. Like, I'm it's gonna take me a while to believe. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna take me a while to believe before I can fully buy into Joe Flacco being the legit quarterback this team needs to go on a playoff run. And he proved me wrong time after time after time again. And what he did in the regular season in that 5-game stretch against the Rams, the Jaguars, the Jets, the Bears, and the Texans was unbelievable. I mean, like I said, there's only 4 quarterbacks in NFL history known for 1,600 yards and 13 touchdowns in a month. Mahomes, Jim Kelly, Peyton Manning, and Joe Flacco this year. So what he did was incredible, like incredible. And it just sucks that we got the Joe Flacco the last couple of years at the worst possible time. I'm not even blaming anybody. Like, it's just it was almost inevitable. It just came
at the bad with the good. Yeah, it came at the worst time. You got to take the bad with the good because in hindsight, man, we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for Joe Flacco, right?
100%.
Yeah, like if Joe Flacco, if Joe Flacco didn't come in here balling the way he balled out and you know found that rhythm that he found, we wouldn't even have had a playoff game, man. I just fucking wish that we had some like that, man. We talking about blaming like Tennessee, man. I blame the Miami Dolphins because if Miami take care of their business in week 17, both teams are playing for something in week 18. And even if the Ravens beat the Steelers and we still end up as a wild card team, we still locked in mentally, right? We still got that same type of energy, intensity, like going into the week 18 game. And I'm pretty sure that carries over to the wild card weekend. But the fact that they didn't have anything to play for, it almost seemed like, man, after we beat the Jets at home, that was it.
That was the Super Bowl.
That was it.
Never recovered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flacco resorted to some of the stuff we had seen the last couple of years from Flacco. I thought he was fine in the first half. His numbers were great in the first half. He did a touchdown to Kareem Hunt. His picks came in the second. But in the second half, I thought he started to force things a little bit. Granted, the defense was giving up points, so he knew he had to match them play for play. But one thing Flacco had done so well over the 5 games he had played for the Browns, which had not been something he had done previously, was just take the check down and take what the defense gave him. And you even look at that first pick 6 he threw. Yes, the offensive line got beat. James Hudson got beat. He was under pressure. Yes, he said after he was just trying to throw the ball away. He didn't have the arm strength to get there. But also, if you look back at it, he was trying to force it and his eyes, not the ball, but his eyes were locked into Amari Cooper. He had David Njoku wide ass open for a 5-yard check down. And Njoku picks up another 10 yards on the ground. It's a 15-yard play. You're only down 10 points at that point. It's 14-24. You just got to stop coming out of the opening drive of the third quarter. And yet you're already in field goal range, essentially. If you trust Riley Patterson, that's definitely Dustin Hopkins' field goal range. And Njoku picks up that 15-yard gain. That's a whole different story. So it's not just the interceptions. It's not just the situation. Flacco did not play his best, but it was more Flacco from the mental standpoint, not the physical, the mental standpoint of he got greedy in a situation where I didn't think he needed to get greedy, and it came back to bite him in the ass. And Earl, hindsight's 2020. We'll never know how this would have played out. But if you're telling me we're down, at worst case, 24-17, if that pick six doesn't happen, he hits Njoku, they move into field goal range. Even if they get stopped and kick a field goal, it's now 24-17. The pressure goes back to Houston, and it's on them to make a play offensively, and it's on the defense to make a stop defensively, not 31-14. We have to score a touchdown every single drive where we're losing. So it's just unfortunate, man. At the end of the day, it's unfortunate that when the lights were the brightest, the guy that we had the most confidence in played like dog crap. So it is what it is. Like, it is what it is.
I know we for the wrap soon, but I remember looking at the screen. Joe Flacco was 20 for 24, 224 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Literally, as soon as that graphic went off, the very next play, he threw the pick six.
Oh, I tweeted. Can I read you a tweet I sent yesterday that's getting old takes exposed to the galore? I said, and this is literally the pass before the pick six. If there's any quarterback to lead built to lead a team on a double-digit second half road playoff game comeback, it's probably the guy tied with Tom Brady for the most postseason road wins ever. And Flacco, we trust. The next freaking throw, pick six. Literally, like the graphic,
and so,
the worst timing.
Like that right there, we came out at halftime. We got the defensive stop that we needed. And honestly, we shouldn't even got that defensive stop because we had a blown coverage on that drive that CJ Stroud overthrew the wide receiver. And so then you get to stop, you come back on offense, you're driving down the field, and then you throw the pick six, and it's like, okay, it's now it's getting, but then you come back the very next drive and you throw another one. And it was just like, man, sign, seal, delivered. This game was over. This game was over within the first 5 minutes of the third quarter. Dead serious. So,
and I mentioned earlier, Earl, that second pick six was a result of getting stuffed on 3rd and 1. And we had talked all season long, like Kareem Hunt has been unbelievable. Maybe, and we'll do this week on UCSS, but you could argue Kareem Hunt was the best move Andrew Berry made all season. And he'd been money, the best running back in the NFL on 3rd or 4th and 1s this year. And he got stuffed running behind James Hudson, which forced the throw on 4th down. And I just can't believe, man, this is how it ended up. Let me read a couple chats. If, like I said, guys, there's no ant. The chats are moving fast as hell. I'm going to see if I can find any super chats. I think I saw 1 or 2 in there, so I apologize if we missed it. I really do. And we appreciate you guys for tuning in. This has been at least therapy for me. Earl, I know you hopped in, so you think like-minded me to myself where it's a little therapy just to talk about it. So hopefully you guys could have used this too. There's the super chat. If you see anywhere else, I'll throw it up there. But CTG Cement said, feel awful for the 2 Davids. Bell and Njoku were good. Hey, Bell balled out against Cincinnati. He didn't look rusty. All I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, they played well. Defensively, it was J-OK and nobody. It sucks, but you know what? We'll read all your comments on Monday, man. We don't have Ant in here. He does all the back end searching. Earl, I appreciate you hopping on, man. We went for 45 minutes. We're back tomorrow. We have a full UCSS show. We'll answer all the questions. Here are some of the questions I'm going to ask tomorrow on UCSS. So if you want Bull's thoughts, G's thoughts, Jason, the whole crew, we're going to ask who gets the most blame for the team not being prepared. Did we overrate this defense at any point? Did sitting out week 18 ruin the rhythm? What the hell happened to Myles Garrett? How are we so wrong about Houston or the Browns closer to a Super Bowl today than they were 3 years ago? Did we downplay the rematch factor? And what is the Browns' number 1 need heading into next season? So those are things we'll answer tomorrow. Earl, I appreciate you hopping on, my friend. It's going to be a sucky Sunday. And let's just pray for a second that the Steelers and Baker Mayfield both lose on Monday, because that'll be all hell from lose on Tuesday. if those two
Oh
both play
god.
and win on Monday. So let's just pray, say a little prayer, whoever you pray to, whatever your religious beliefs are, just pray that that is not the case come Tuesday morning. Or I may call out for Tuesday morning, Earl, if the Steelers beat the Bills and Baker Mayfield beats the Eagles. So
Big facts. All right, y'all. Catch y'all Monday.
have a good Sunday. Enjoy some playoff football today, and we'll see
Need my
y'all
help.